Story 1: The Mirror Route. The GPS showed I'd passed the same abandoned Texaco station 4 times in the last hour, but each time from a different direction. I pulled over at mile marker 156 on Interstate 40, hands shaking as I gripped the steering wheel, and watched my fuel gauge drop from 3/4 to half in the 30 seconds I sat there. The engine was off. My name is Robert Hayes. 47 years old, 22 years behind the wheel, and I've never missed a delivery deadline. Never. I haul refrigerated pharmaceuticals, temperature-sensitive shipments where 15 minutes late means $100,000 in spoiled inventory. My reefer unit maintains exactly 36 degrees Fahrenheit. Has to. The load I was carrying from Oklahoma City to Memphis was worth more than my house. I'd taken the I-40 through Arkansas 100 times. Knew every truck stop, every way station, every speed trap between Fort Smith and the Tennessee border. But when I'd entered Arkansas at 11:47 p.m. on March 14, 2023, something had changed. The road was the same cracked asphalt, same reflective markers, same overhead signs, but it was moving wrong. The first sign was the town of Ozark. I should have passed through it heading east. My GPS showed me entering from the south. The McDonald's I'd stopped at for coffee 30 minutes before Ozark appeared on my left when it should have been on my right if I was traveling east. I told myself I was tired. 17 hours into an 18-hour drive, third night of a 4-night run. Fatigue does things to your perception. Then I passed the same overturned semi I'd seen 40 miles back. Same yellow Penske truck, same position on its side, same scattered boxes of what looked like auto parts. Same lack of any emergency vehicles, any other traffic, any sign that anyone else had ever seen it. The accident looked fresh, shattered glass still glittering on the asphalt, diesel fuel still pooling, but there was no driver, no blood, no skid marks leading up to where it lay. I grabbed my CB radio. Breaker, breaker, this is Snowman running I-40 eastbound. Anyone got their ears on? Static, pure white noise that hurt to listen to. I tried channel 19, then 17, then cycled through all 40 channels. Nothing but static that seemed to pulse, to breathe, to almost form words if I listened too carefully. That's when I started counting mile markers. They were going backwards. Mile 156, mile 155, mile 154. I was traveling east at 70 miles per hour and the numbers were descending. I pressed harder on the accelerator, 75, 80. The mile markers continued their backwards countdown, one every minute, perfectly regular despite my speed. Mile 153, mile 152, mile 151. My phone showed no signal. Not unusual in rural Arkansas, but the screen also showed the time as 11:47 p.m., the exact moment I'd entered the state. I watched the seconds tick, 11:47:23, 11:47:24, 11:47:25. Then it jumped back. 11:47:23. The same 3 seconds looping. I pulled over. That's when I noticed my fuel gauge dropping with the engine off. The night outside my cab looked normal. Dark Arkansas pine forest on both sides, highway stretching in both directions, stars overhead. But the stars weren't moving. I stared at Orion's belt for a full minute and it didn't shift position at all. The sky was frozen. The trees weren't swaying. There was no wind, no sound of insects, no distant traffic noise. Just absolute silence pressing against my ears like water pressure. I started the engine. The dashboard clock still read 11:47, still cycling through the same 3 seconds. My fuel gauge showed 1/4 tank now. I'd had 7/8 when I pulled over less than 5 minutes ago. I had to keep moving. Sitting still was burning fuel I didn't have. I pulled back onto I-40 heading east, watching the mile markers count down. Mile 150, mile 149, mile 148. Every marker I passed made me feel like I was traveling away from something, deeper into something, further from anywhere real. The highway remained empty. No other vehicles, no roadkill, no trash blown onto the shoulder. Just perfect, empty asphalt under my headlights. At mile marker 143, I saw myself. My truck, same blue Peterbilt 579, same refrigerated trailer, same company logo, was parked on the shoulder ahead. I could see a figure in the driver's seat slumped against the window. I slowed as I approached, my headlights illuminating the cab. The driver was me. Same red flannel shirt, same graying beard, same scar on my left cheek from a bar fight in Omaha 15 years ago. But his eyes were closed, and his skin was gray, and his mouth hung open in a way that meant he wasn't breathing. I was looking at my own corpse. I accelerated past it, hands welded to the steering wheel, breath coming in short gasps. My CB radio crackled. "Breaker, breaker, this is Snowman running I-40 eastbound. Anyone got their ears on?" My voice coming from behind. Me from the truck I'd just passed, from my dead mouth in that cab. Mile marker 142. Another truck on the shoulder. Another me slumped dead in the driver's seat. Mile marker 141. Another, mile marker 140. Another, each one showing me in a different stage of death, fresh, bloated, desiccated, skeletal. 7 versions of my corpse, 7 trucks counting down the markers. My fuel gauge hit empty, the engine coughed. I slammed my palm against the dashboard. No, not yet. The reefer unit was still running. I could hear it humming behind me, maintaining 36 degrees exactly, protecting $100,000 worth of pharmaceuticals that would never reach Memphis. That would never reach anywhere. The engine died at mile marker 139. The truck rolled to a stop. The silence rushed back in thicker now, pressing against the windows like it wanted inside. My headlights dimmed, flickered, went dark. The reefer unit kept humming. I could hear my heartbeat, could hear blood moving through my veins, could hear my thoughts echoing in my skull. The CB radio crackled again. "You can't leave," said my voice, but older, rougher, filtered through static and distance. "None of us can. We're all still here, Robert. Every version that entered after 1147, every iteration, every loop. We're all still driving, all still trying to reach Memphis, all still dying when the fuel runs out." I grabbed my flashlight, yanked open the door, jumped down to the asphalt. I'd walk. I'd follow the highway east until I found something, someone, anywhere that wasn't this. The moment my feet hit the road, I felt it, the wrongness in the ground itself, like the asphalt was softer than it should be, like it was breathing, like it wanted to pull me down into it. I ran, flashlight beam bouncing ahead of me, boots pounding pavement, lungs burning. Mile marker 138 appeared in my flashlight beam. Then 137, then 136. The markers were getting closer together. What should have been mile-long distances were now 50 yards, now 25, now 10. The markers were compressing, reality folding in on itself. I passed another version of myself. This one wasn't in a truck. He was running, just like me, flashlight in hand, terror in his eyes. He ran right through me, no collision, no sensation, just his body passing through mine like I was smoke. I felt cold where he touched me, cold that went bone deep, cold that tasted like diesel and fear. Mile marker 135, 134, 133. They appeared every few seconds now, reality compressing, the highway folding. I could see all of them at once, all the markers stretching into the distance, all the versions of my truck parked on the shoulder, all the versions of me dead in their cabs, all the versions of me running, all of us trapped in the same shrinking space. The Texaco station appeared ahead. Abandoned, windows dark, gas pumps rusted. I'd passed it 4 times before, now I could see why. There were 4 of them, 4 identical stations, one at each corner of a crossroads that shouldn't exist. I-40 doesn't have crossroads, it's an interstate. But here the highway split into 4 directions, each one leading to an identical abandoned Texaco, each one leading back to itself. I stood in the center of the crossroads. My flashlight died. The darkness was total, complete, the kind of black that makes you forget what light ever looked like. I could hear engines, my engine multiplied, echoing from every direction. Could hear my own voice on the CB radio calling for help that would never come. Could hear the reefer units humming, all of them maintaining exactly 36 degrees, all of them protecting cargo that would never be delivered. My phone buzzed, a text message from myself. You're at mile marker 156, you've been here before, you'll be here again. The route doesn't end, Robert, it just loops, we just loop. Welcome to the mirror route. As I looked at the phone's clock, 11:47:23, 11:47:24, 11:47:25, 11:47:23. When I looked up, I was sitting in my truck again. Engine idling, fuel gauge showing 3/4 full. GPS showing mile marker 156 on Interstate 40. The same abandoned Texaco station visible in my headlights. The clock on my dashboard read 11:47 p.m. March 14, 2023. I grabbed the CB radio. My hand was shaking. Breaker, breaker, this is Snowman running I-40 eastbound. Anyone got their ears on? But from the speaker, my own voice answered, you can't leave. None of us can, we're all still here. I looked in my side mirror. Behind me, stretching into the darkness, I could see them, all my trucks, all my bodies, all the versions of me that had driven this route before, that were driving it now, that would drive it forever. An infinite line of blue Peterbilts, all carrying the same load, all trying to reach Memphis, all trapped in the same 67 miles of highway that didn't know how to end. The GPS recalculated. Continue east on I-40 for 67 miles, then continue east on I-40 for C. At XTY 7 miles, then continue east on I-40 for 67 miles. Then I pressed the accelerator. What else could I do? I had a delivery to make. The reefer unit was humming, 36 degrees exactly, perfect temperature. The load was still good, I just had to reach Memphis, just had to keep driving. Mile marker 155, mile 154, mile 153. My fuel gauge started to drop. Somewhere ahead at mile marker 143, I knew I'd find another version of myself, dead in the cab, waiting for me to pass. And somewhere behind me at mile marker 156, another version was just entering Arkansas, just checking the GPS, just settling in for what should have been a routine drive through the night. The CB radio crackled with voices now. All of them mine, all of them calling for help. All of them trapped in the same loop, the same 67 miles, the same 3 seconds cycling endlessly on the clock. I added my voice to the chorus, knowing it wouldn't matter, knowing no one outside the mirror route could hear us, knowing we were already ghosts screaming in a machine that had forgotten how to stop running. I drive I-40 east every night. I pass my corpses at mile markers 143 through 137. I run out of fuel at mile marker 139. I watch my phone cycle through the same 3 seconds. I stand at the crossroads surrounded by identical Texaco stations. I read the text message from myself. And then I'm back in the truck at mile marker 156, fuel gauge full, ready to try again. The reefer unit maintains exactly 36 degrees. The load never spoils, I never reach Memphis. And somewhere in the real world, I imagine them waiting, my dispatcher, my wife, the receiving warehouse, all wondering where I am, why I'm late, why I never arrived. They'll find my truck eventually, empty and abandoned on I-40 in Arkansas. They'll find no body, no sign of struggle, no explanation. Just a refrigerated trailer full of pharmaceuticals kept at a perfect 36 degrees, and a GPS stuck on a loop between mile markers 156 and 89, and a CB radio broadcasting the same message on every channel. Breaker, breaker, this is Snowman. Anyone got their ears on? Please, anyone, we're all still here. We're all still driving. Someone has to hear us. But no one ever does. The story 2, the breath in the cargo. The smell hit me at the Nebraska border, sweet and rotten, like meat left in summer heat, but coming from a refrigerated trailer that my temperature gauge swore was holding steady at -10 Fahrenheit. I pulled over at the first rest stop, popped the trailer seals, and found the cargo exactly as loaded, 40 pallets of frozen seafood bound for restaurants in Denver. Everything still solid ice. Everything still vacuum sealed. It's everything normal except for the smell that shouldn't exist, and the wet handprint on the inside of the trailer door that was too large to be human. Patricia Sullivan, 51 years old, owner-operator for 26 years. I've hauled everything: live chickens, hazardous chemicals, crude oil, organs for transplant. I know what things should smell like, what temperatures mean when something's wrong with a load. This was wrong in ways that violated physics. The handprint was 7 inches across the palm. Fingers 12 inches long, made of what looked like condensation, but the trailer was -10. There shouldn't be any moisture to condense. I touched it. The water was warm. Body temperature warm. It evaporated under my finger, leaving behind a residue that felt oily, that smelled like the ocean, that seemed to move on its own when I wasn't looking directly at it. I closed the doors, checked the seals. They were intact, the numbered plastic locks the warehouse had put on in Portland unbroken. Whatever made that handprint had been inside since loading, for 16 hours, at -10 degrees. I wiped my hand on my jeans, and the residue left a stain that looked like it was breathing, expanding, and contracting rhythmically. I had 340 miles to Denver, $15,000 riding on on-time delivery. I got back in the cab, cranked the reefer unit down to -20 just to be sure, and pulled back onto I-80. Oh, the smell got worse. By the time I hit mile marker 267, it was overwhelming, sweet rot mixed with brine, seaweed, ammonia, something else I couldn't identify, something organic and alive. I had all the windows down, freezing Wyoming air blasting through the cab, and I could still taste it. The smell was coming through the vents, through the sleeper berth curtain, through the metal itself. Like it was seeping forward from the trailer, molecule by molecule. My CB radio clicked on by itself. I hadn't touched it. Channel 19, Trucker's channel, but the voice that came through wasn't a trucker, wasn't human. It was breathing. Long, wet inhalations, slow, gurgling exhalations. The rhythm wrong, too slow for human lungs, too deep, like something massive was pulling air through water. Each breath created static, made the speak. A crackle left moisture on the CB's display screen that I could see from where I sat. I turned the CB off. The breathing continued, coming from the radio, from the vents, from behind me in the trailer. I could hear it over the engine, over the wind, over my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. Something in my cargo was breathing. Something that shouldn't be breathing was alive at -20 degrees. So I called the broker, dead air. I called the shipping company, voicemail full. I called 911. Your call cannot be completed as dialed. Every number in my phone produced the same result, either silence or that wet, rhythmic breathing filtering through the speaker. Mile marker 245. The truck started to slow. I had my foot pressed to the floor, RPMs maxed, but my speedometer was dropping. 70 miles per hour, 65, 60, like something was dragging me, pulling back against the engine, adding weight that shouldn't exist. My trailer axles groaned. I checked the side mirror. The trailer was sagging in the middle, metal bending, like something inside was pressing out. I pulled over, grabbed my flashlight and tire iron. The sun was setting, turning Wyoming scrubland gold and red, beautiful, peaceful. Wrong. Everything was too quiet, no birds, no insects, no distant traffic. Just that breathing, louder now, coming from the trailer in rhythmic waves. The temperature gauge on the reefer unit showed -20. The compressor was running perfectly. But when I put my hand against the trailer's exterior, the metal was warm, not cold, warm, and it was pulsing, expanding and contracting with each breath. The rear doors were bulging outward. The seals were still intact, but the doors themselves were bowing, metal stress marks spiderwebbing across their surface. Something was pushing from inside. Something big enough to bend industrial-grade steel designed to hold 40,000 pounds. I cut the seals. The moment the plastic broke, the smell exploded out, a wall of rot and ocean so thick I could see it, a visible miasma that rolled across the parking lot like fog. I staggered back, eyes watering, throat closing. Through the tears, I saw the doors. They were opening, not swinging open, growing open. The metal was moving like flesh, pulling apart, creating an entrance that shouldn't exist in a standard freight trailer. The interior was dark, darker than it should be. Not the darkness of an unlit space, but active darkness, darkness that consumed light that my flashlight beam couldn't penetrate. Something moved inside, something huge. I could hear it shifting, wet sounds, dragging sounds, the creak of freezing metal warming and bending. My flashlight caught a glimpse, pale flesh, glistening, covered in something that looked like scales but moved like cilia, thousands of tiny hairs waving in unison. As I ran back to the cab, door locked, engine roaring. I pulled back onto I-80, trailer doors still open, still yawning wider, and I drove. 75 miles per hour, 80, 90. The truck shook, protested, but I didn't care. I had to reach Denver. Had to reach somewhere with people, lights, help. In my side mirror, I could see into the trailer. The darkness was spreading, flowing out of the open doors like liquid, like smoke, covering the road behind me. And in that darkness, shapes were moving. Humanoid but wrong, too tall, too many limbs. Skin glistening wet under the streetlights. They were walking on the highway, following my truck, keeping pace at 90 miles per hour. As my phone rang, unknown number, I answered without thinking. Hello. Breathing that same wet, gurgling breath. Then a voice speaking through water, through distance. You open the doors. Oh, what are you? I whispered. A cargo, we've always been cargo, shipped from deep places to deep places. But you open the doors, Patricia, you let us breathe surface air. We can't go back now. We don't want to go back. So I hung up. The phone rang again immediately. Same number. I threw it out the window. It rang on the seat beside me, the same phone, whole and undamaged, even though I just watched it hit the asphalt at 90 miles per hour. Mile marker 198. The shapes following me were multiplying, dozens now, hundreds, pulling themselves out of my trailer, out of the spreading darkness onto the highway. They weren't chasing me, they were spreading. Some walked north into the scrubland, some south, some continued east toward Denver. All of them moving with terrible purpose, like they knew exactly where they needed to go. So I looked at my fuel gauge, still 3/4 full. I looked at my speedometer, still 90. I looked at the odometer. It wasn't moving. The numbers were frozen. I'd been driving for 20 minutes at 90 miles per hour and I hadn't traveled anywhere. So the road ahead started to look familiar. Mile marker 198. Again. Mile marker 198. Again. I was looping, covering the same stretch of highway, while behind me the cargo emptied itself onto the world. The reefer unit temperature alarm started screaming. The gauge showed 98 degrees body temperature. The compressor was still running, still pulling power, but the trailer interior was warming to match something's core temperature. Something alive. Something that had been frozen for how long? Years, decades, centuries. My CB radio crackled. Multiple voices now, all breathing in unison, creating a rhythm, a pattern, almost like language. The words formed slowly, painfully, shaped by mouths that had never spoken before. Thank you, Patricia, Sullivan, owner, operator, 26 years, you delivered us. I screamed, slammed my fists on the steering wheel. I didn't deliver you, you're not at Denver, you're on I-80 in the middle of nowhere. The breathing paused, then almost gently, we never wanted Denver's, we wanted out, we wanted airs, we wanted to walk, we've been cargo so long, frozen, shipped, stored, we forgot warmth, forgot movement, you gave it back. Mile marker 198, the 5th time passing it, the 6th. I could see them more clearly now in the gathering darkness. They were beautiful in a terrible way, bioluminescent patterns on their skin, eyes that reflected light like deep-sea fish, movements that flowed like water given form. They weren't attacking anything, weren't destroying, just walking, spreading out across Wyoming, finding their way to wherever they needed to go. My trailer was empty now. I could feel the weight difference the way the truck handled. 40 pallets of frozen seafood, that's what the manifest said. That's what I'd believed I was carrying. But seafood doesn't breathe, doesn't grow, doesn't walk away when you open the doors. I stopped the truck. What was the point of driving a loop? The shapes flowed past me, ignoring me, touching my truck gently as they passed, leaving wet handprints that glowed faintly in the dark. Hundreds of them, thousands. All emerging from a trailer that should have held 40 pallets, from a darkness that was deeper than physics allowed, from cold storage that had kept them dormant until I broke the seals. One of them stopped, stood beside my window. Up close I could see it was vaguely female, vaguely human, vaguely fish, vaguely something else entirely. Its eyes were black and kind. It placed its hand against my window 7 inches across the palm, fingers 12 inches long, and I understood. They weren't monsters, they were refugees, prisoners. Cargo shipped from some deep ocean place to some other deep ocean place, never meant to wake, never meant to walk until I'd given them the chance. I'm sorry, I whispered. I didn't know. The manifest said seafood, just frozen seafood. The creature's mouth didn't move, but I heard its voice inside my head, gentle as tide. We. No, you were kind, you gave water, you gave warmth, you gave freedom. We are grateful, but Patricia, you cannot tell. I tell what? Where's we came from, where's we went, what you'd carried, they would hunt us, freeze us, ship us, make us cargo again. I won't tell anyone, I swear. You will forget this kindness we grant you. The creature touched the glass. My vision went white. I woke up at a rest stop outside Denver. 6:47 a.m. My trailer was empty, doors sealed, temperature gauge showing -20. My manifest showed successful delivery of 40 pallets of frozen seafood to various Denver restaurants, all signed for, all received. My phone showed text from my dispatcher congratulating me on the on-time delivery. But I had no memory of the last 12 hours. The odometer showed I'd driven 340 miles. The fuel gauge showed I'd used the expected amount. Everything was normal, everything made sense, except for the smell faint but present of ocean and rot, and the handprint on my passenger window, 7 inches across, 12-inch fingers still warm. I tried to remember what happened. Tried to recall why there was a stain on my jeans that looked like it was breathing, why my CB radio was stuck on channel 19 broadcasting static that sounded like waves, why I felt grateful and terrified in equal measure. But the memories wouldn't come. They were there just beneath the surface, like something swimming in deep water, visible as a shadow but never breaking through. I drive I-80 twice a month now. Every time I pass mile marker 198 in Wyoming, my hands start shaking. Every time I haul refrigerated cargo, I check the seals 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. And every time I smell the ocean, I feel like I'm forgetting something important, something beautiful, something terrible, something I delivered that was never meant to arrive. Story 3: The Static Children. The first child appeared in my head. Lights at 2:14 a.m. on Route 50 across Nevada, the loneliest road in America, standing perfectly still in the center of the westbound lane, wearing a yellow dress that hadn't been manufactured since 1973. I swerved, missed her by inches, and when I checked my mirror, she was gone. Not running away, not diving into the desert scrub. Just gone, like she'd been erased between 1 second and the next. Marcus Chen, 39 years old, third-generation trucker. My grandfather drove Route 50 in the 60s, my father in the 80s, now me hauling electronics from Salt Lake City to Sacramento, making this run twice a week for the last 8 years. I know this road. Every curve, every rise, every mile marker between Ely and Fallen. I know it's empty. I know it's desolate. I know it's supposed to be lonely. But I've never seen children before. The second child appeared at mile marker 187. A boy, maybe 7 years old, wearing overalls and a striped shirt, standing on the shoulder watching my truck approach. As my headlights swept over him, his face flickered like a television losing signal, like reality couldn't decide if he was there or not. His mouth was moving, forming words, but I couldn't hear anything. Just static from my radio, crackling in rhythm with his lips. I grabbed my CB. Anyone on Route 50, you got a kid on the side of the road, mile marker 187 appears to be lost or in distress. No response. I tried again. This is Dragonfly, westbound Route 50. I have a possible child in danger requesting assistance. The static grew louder, and within the static I heard it, children's voices, dozens of them, all talking at once, all saying the same thing: we've been waiting. I stopped the truck, grabbed my flashlight. The boy was still there, 20 yards behind me, visible in my side mirror, not moving, just standing, flickering. I climbed down, boots crunching on gravel, flashlight beam cutting through Nevada darkness. "Hey kid, you okay? Where are your parents?" He turned to face me fully. That's when I saw his eyes. They were wrong, not missing, not damaged, wrong. They looked like old television screens showing nothing but snow, black and white static swirling where pupils should be. His mouth kept moving, kept forming words, and the static from my CB grew louder, until I could almost understand. The boy vanished. Not faded. Not ran. Vanished like someone had turned off a switch, leaving only silence and empty highway and the overwhelming certainty that I'd just seen something that violated every law of physics I understood. I got back in my truck, hands shaking. The CB was silent now, but my radio was scanning, cycling through FM stations automatically, something it had never done before. Each station held for exactly 3 seconds: pop music, talk radio, religious programming, news, then static, then the next station. Like the radio was searching for something, hunting. Mile marker 183. Another child, girl maybe 10, sitting on a mile marker post, legs dangling, Victorian-era dress, lace collar, button shoes. She waved at me as I passed, a friendly wave, a normal wave. Except her hand was translucent and I could see stars through her palm. Mile marker 179. Twin boys holding hands, matching sailor suits from the 1920s. Standing in the middle of the road again, forcing me to swerve, and when I looked back, they were closer to my truck than they'd been before. Like they'd teleported forward. The radio found a station. 1340 AM. A child's voice speaking through layers of static. We've been waiting for so long, so many drivers, so many lights passing, so many years. We just want to go home. We just want to remember where home was. Can you help us? Can you see us, please? We're so cold. We're so alone. We're so... I turned the radio off. The voice continued, not from the radio, from my sleeper berth, from the empty passenger seat, from the vents, the speakers, the metal frame of the truck itself, all of them speaking in unison. We just want to go home. Mile marker 175. 5 children now. Various ages, various time periods. A girl in a flapper dress from the 20s, a boy in bell-bottoms from the 70s, a toddler in modern clothes that couldn't be more than 2 years old, all of them flickering, all of them translucent, all of them watching my truck approach with those static-filled eyes. I didn't stop, I accelerated. 65, 70, 75. The children stood still, watching me pass, and each time I passed one, my radio changed stations. 1340 AM, 890 AM, 1450 AM, 670 AM. Each station playing the same thing, children's voices begging to be taken home, begging to be remembered, begging to be seen. My GPS started glitching. The road ahead on the screen was fragmenting, dissolving into pixels, reforming as something else. Not Route 50. Not any road I recognized. The GPS showed me driving through what looked like a graveyard, headstones scrolling paw. Sent on either side, but outside my window, there was only desert, only darkness. Only the endless nothing of Nevada at night. Mile marker 168. I lost count of how many children I'd passed. Dozens now, maybe hundreds, all along the roadside, sitting on markers, standing in the brush, lying on the asphalt, all flickering, all semi-transparent, all watching me with television-static eyes. And the voices from my radio, my CB, my phone, all overlapping, creating a chorus. Take us home. We don't remember where home is. We've been here so long. Take us with you, please, please, please. My truck started to slow. Engine still running, accelerator pressed down but speed dropping. 70, 65, 60. Like invisible hands were pulling me back, dragging me, stopping me. I looked in my mirror. The children were climbing into my trailer. I'd been hauling electronics, laptops, tablets, phones, 40 pallets of consumer electronics headed for Sacramento. But through the trailer's side vents I could see movement. Small shadows, children-shaped shadows. climbing in through spaces too small to fit through, pouring into the cargo area like water, like smoke. I stopped the truck, drew my pistol, the .38 I keep under the seat for emergencies. What good is a gun against ghosts, against static made flesh? But I was too terrified not to have something in my hands. The back of my trailer was glowing. Faint blue light flickering like a dying fluorescent seeping out through every gap in the door seals. I could hear them inside, children's laughter, children's crying, children's voices all talking over each other. Home, 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 take us home, we forgot, help us remember, help us, help. I yanked open the trailer doors. They were everywhere. 50, 60, 70 children, all ages, all time periods, all flickering between visible and invisible. Some were sitting on my pallets of electronics, some were standing in the aisles, some were floating near the ceiling. All of them staring at me with those static eyes, and I realized they weren't eyes anymore, they were screens. Old CRT television screens where their faces should be, each one showing a different image. A house, a street, a yard, a bedroom, memories. Places they'd been, places they'd lived, places they couldn't find anymore. "Well, where's home?" I whispered. They answered in unison, voices harmonizing into a single desperate wail. "We don't know, we forgot, we've been here too long. The road took it, the desert took it. We're stuck between the stations, between the signals, between then and now. Help us tune in. Help us find the frequency, help us remember." I understood they weren't ghosts. They were echoes. Remnants caught in some kind of electromagnetic loop, trapped by the same radio signals that had crisscrossed Route 50 for decades. The loneliest road in America, where radio towers broadcast across hundreds of empty miles, where signals overlapped and interfered and created standing waves of electromagnetic energy that somehow impossibly trapped these children, trapped their memories. Trapped them between stations, between frequencies, between life and whatever came after. "I can't help you," I said. "I don't know how." The child closest to me, the girl in the yellow dress from mile marker 214, reached out. Her hand passed through my chest. I felt cold, then heat, then a rush of images, her life, her death, her decades of wandering this road. She died in 1973, car accident. Her family's station wagon rolled 6 times, scattered wreckage across 2 miles of highway. She'd been thrown clear, died in the sagebrush alone. And somehow, the radio signals, the electromagnetic spectrum, the invisible waves carrying voices and music and data across empty desert had captured her, held her, kept her here. All of them decades of deaths, car crashes, heat stroke, exposure, murder, all along Route 50. All trapped by the same electromagnetic web, unable to move on, unable to remember where they'd come from, unable to find their way home. "I'm sorry," I told them. "I'm so sorry." They didn't respond with words. They just looked at me with those screen faces, each one showing a different fragment of a lost home, and I felt their loneliness like a weight, like drowning, like being buried alive in static. I closed the trailer doors, got back in my cab, started the engine. The children didn't try to stop me, didn't try to follow. They just stood there in my trailer, glowing softly, waiting for something I couldn't give them. I drove, mile marker 167, 166, 165. The radio cycled through stations. On each one I could hear them, the static children broadcasting their lost memories, their forgotten homes, their endless plea for someone to tune in, to remember them, to take them somewhere that didn't exist anymore. I reached Sacramento at dawn, delivered my cargo. The warehouse workers unloaded 40 pallets of electronics, everything account. Z for everything intact. They noticed nothing unusual, no children, no static, no glow. But I know they're still there, still in my trailer, still riding with me every time I make the Route 50 run. I can feel them when I'm driving, a weight that the scales don't show, a presence that makes my radio hunt for stations, a cold that the heater can't touch. Sometimes late at night on empty highways, I tune the radio to 1340 AM and listen. They're always there, always calling, take us home, help us remember, we just want to go home. I can't help them, I've tried. I've stopped at every spot where I saw them, looked for grave sites, searched for records of accidents. Some I found, many I didn't. Time and desert had erased them, covered their stories, forgotten their names. But they haven't forgotten. They're still here, still searching, still broadcasting on frequencies that shouldn't carry anything but static. And every time I drive Route 50, I see more. New children joining the old, fresh deaths adding to decades of loss. The loneliest road in America, getting lonelier, filling up with ghosts trapped between stations, waiting for someone to tune into the right frequency and show them the way home. I don't drive Route 50 anymore. I changed my routes, take longer paths, lose money, lose time, but I can still hear them. Even here in California, in Oregon, in Washington. Faint voices on the edge of radio stations, children crying between the songs. Because once you've seen them, once you've felt them pass through you, once you've heard their broadcast, you can never quite tune them out. The static children are always calling, always waiting, always trapped between here and home. And I can't save them. Story 4: The Flesh Highway. The asphalt started bleeding at mile marker 412 on I-95 through Georgia, thick dark fluid seeping up through cracks that looked like veins, spreading across both lanes in patterns too organic to be random. I thought it was oil at first, some industrial spill, until my tires hit it and the truck lurched sideways like it was driving over muscle instead of pavement. Like the road was flinching. James Mitchell, 44 years old, 15 years hauling produce up and down the East Coast. I'd driven this exact stretch of I-95 maybe 200 times. Knew it was supposed to be standard Georgia Interstate, pine trees, red dirt, truck stops every 30 miles. But when my headlights caught the spreading fluid, when I felt the road move underneath me, I knew something fundamental had changed. The fluid was warm. I could feel heat through the truck's floor, through the pedals, radiating up like body temperature. It smelled wrong too, not like oil, not like tar, like something organic decomposing. Meat left in the sun, infection, gangrene. I rolled down the window and the smell hit me so hard I gagged, eyes watering, stomach heaving. I grabbed my CB radio. This is Nighthawk southbound on I-95, mile marker 412. There's some kind of spill covering both lanes, possibly hazardous, requesting assistance. Static answered. I tried again. Anyone southbound on 95 in Georgia be advised theirs. The static resolved into sound, not words, breathing, wet, rasping inhalations that reminded me of a hospital, of ventilators, of lungs working past their capacity. Each breath created a pulse in the static, a rhythm, and I realized with crawling horror that the breathing matched the movement under my tires. The road was breathing. I should have stopped, should have turned around. But there was nowhere to turn around. The median was filled with that same dark fluid, and the shoulders were collapsing inward, the concrete barriers moving like ribs, expanding and contracting. The highway was closing behind me, forcing me forward, deeper into Georgia, deeper into whatever this was becoming. Mile marker 411. The veins in the asphalt were thicker now, more pronounced. I could see them pulsing, could see fluid moving through them with each breath from my CB radio. The road surface was changing texture, less like pavement, more like skin. Rough in places, smooth in others, occasionally glistening with moisture that shouldn't exist. My temperature gauge spiked. The engine was overheating, but not from mechanical failure. The road underneath was radiating heat, cooking my truck from below. I could smell rubber burning, feel the steering wheel getting hot in my hands. The dashboard showed 98 degrees Fahrenheit, body temperature. The highway had a body temperature. I saw the first growth at mile marker 410. It looked like a tumor. A mass of tissue erupting from the road's surface, maybe 3 feet across, pulsing in rhythm with the breathing. As I passed, it burst, not violently, but slowly, deliberately, releasing a cloud of spores or gas or something that coated my windshield in a viscous film. The wipers smeared it, made it worse, turned my view into a blur of organic matter. I used washer fluid, the chemical Rs. Ejection created smoke. The organic film on my windshield started moving, pulling together, forming patterns. Letters, words, written in whatever biological material the growth had released. Feed me. I screamed, slammed the accelerator down. 70, 80, 90 miles per hour on a highway that was becoming flesh, that was breathing, that was growing tumors and bleeding and now communicating its hunger. Mile marker 408. Both lanes were completely covered now, not asphalt anymore. Skin. Actual skin, pale and mottled, stretched over what used to be concrete, veined and alive and responding to my truck's weight by developing bruises. I could see them forming, dark purple marks spreading out from my tires, the highway bruising under pressure like human tissue. The CB breathing changed, became words. Wet, gargling words forced out of non-existent lungs. Hungry, so, hungry, feed me, more, trucks, more, weight, more, pressure. I looked in my side mirrors. Behind me the highway was healing. The bruises faded, the skin smoothed. Like my truck was doing exactly what it wanted, applying pressure, stimulating it, feeding something's need to be crushed, to be used, to be driven on. Mile marker 405. The tumors were everywhere now. Some small, some the size of cars, all pulsing, all growing, all covered in a membrane that looked like it might rupture at any moment. The road was narrowing too, the skin highway contracting, squeezing down from 4 lanes to 3 to 2, forcing me to drive between walls of tumor growth that scraped against my trailer, leaving streaks of yellow pus across the paint. My truck hit one of the larger tumors. It didn't pop. It absorbed the impact, compressed like a shock absorber, then slowly expanded again. I felt the tumor push back, felt it lift my front axle for a moment before letting go. The highway was playing with me, testing my weight, learning what I felt like. The CB voice was clearer now. Good, driver, heavy, driver, 40,000 pounds, yes, more, drive, more, press, harder, we're so hungry, highway, system, starving, need, traffic, need, weight, need, friction, need, you. I understood then, this wasn't random. This was I-95 itself, or what I-95 had become. Decades of traffic, millions of vehicles, billions of pounds of pressure applied year after year after year to the same strip of asphalt. Somewhere, somehow, that constant stimulation had created consciousness. The highway had woken up, and it was hungry for what had always fed it: trucks, cars, weight, friction, the endless parade of vehicles that had shaped its existence. Mile marker 400, I could see other trucks ahead. At first I felt relief, I wasn't alone, then I got closer and saw what had happened to them. They were sinking, slowly being absorbed into the highway like insects into flypaper. The skin road had grown up around their wheels, over their axles, was creeping up their trailers. I could see drivers in the cabs, some still alive, pounding on windows, screaming silently. The highway was eating them so slowly they could watch it happen. I swerved around them, tried to. But the road moved, actually moved, shifted lanes, redirected me toward the sinking trucks like it wanted me to park alongside them, to join them, to become part of the feeding. "No," I screamed. "I'm not stopping, I'm not feeding you." The CB laughed, wet, bubbling laughter. "Everyone stops. Eventually, everyone sinks. Highway always wins. We've been here before. Roads will be here after. You just food. All of you just food." My front right tire blew, not from damage, from digestion. The skin highway had secreted something acidic, something that ate through rubber in seconds. The truck lurched, dropped onto the rim, and I felt the highway grab me, skin wrapping around the bare metal, holding tight, beginning to pull me down. I yanked the emergency brake. Bad move. The brakes locked, creating even more pressure, even more friction, and the highway moaned in pleasure. I could hear it through the CB, through the floor, through the frame of my truck. A sound of such profound satisfaction that I knew I'd just made it worse, just given it exactly what it wanted. The skin was climbing, up the wheel well, over the undercarriage, spreading across the fuel tank. I could see it through my door gap, pale flesh with visible veins pulsing with each heartbeat. Because the highway had a heartbeat now, I could feel it through my seat, through my spine, bob bump, bob bump, bob bump, regular as clockwork, strong as a horse. I grabbed my emergency kit, flare gun, knife, first aid. The knife felt absurd. What was I going to do, stab a highway? But I kicked open the door, it resisted, skin already forming a seal, and dropped to the ground. My boots hit flesh, warm, yielding, disgustingly alive. I ran, the skin grab. Bed at my feet with each step, tried to hold me, created suction that made running feel like moving through mud. Behind me, my truck was sinking faster now, trailer tilting, cab being pulled under like quicksand made of tissue. Mile marker 398. I could see normal road ahead, maybe half a mile away. Regular asphalt, gray and dead and beautiful. The flesh highway ended. There was a boundary, a transition point where whatever sickness had infected this stretch gave way to healthy pavement. I ran toward it, lungs burning, legs screaming, skin road grabbing at my boots. The tumors around me were growing, agitated, pulsing faster, releasing more spores that made the air thick and yellow. The CB voice followed me, broadcasting from abandoned trucks, from emergency call boxes, from somewhere in the flesh itself. "Can't leave, can't escape. Highway needs you, feeds on you. Always hungry, always hungry." I was 20 yards from normal road when the skin erupted ahead of me. A tumor the size of a house burst through the asphalt boundary, destroying it, pushing the flesh highway forward, claiming new territory. The infection was spreading. I watched it grow, watched healthy pavement bubble and blister and transform into skin, watched veins spider out across fresh asphalt, claiming it, corrupting it, making it alive. The boundary was gone, there was no escape. Just endless flesh highway in all directions, pulsing and breathing and hungry. I dropped to my knees. The skin began to grow over my legs, warm and wet and almost gentle, wrapping around me like a blanket, like an embrace. The CB voice was soft now, soothing. "Sleep, driver, rest. You've driven so far. Let us carry you now. Let us digest you slowly. Feed us, feed the highway. We're so hungry and you're so heavy and we need you. We need you." I felt drowsy. The warmth was spreading up my chest, over my arms. I could see other drivers in the distance, half absorbed, still technically alive, their bodies being processed so slowly they'd live for days, weeks, feeding the highway with their weight and warmth until there was nothing left. As my hand found the flare gun, I pulled the trigger. The flare shot up bright red, screaming into the Georgia night. Maybe someone would see, maybe someone would know this stretch of I-95 had become something wrong. Maybe they'd close it, quarantine it, stop more drivers from becoming food. Or maybe the flesh highway would just keep spreading, mile by mile, infection growing, until all of I-95 was alive and hungry and waiting for the next truck, the next driver, the next meal that would never end, because highways are patient and highways are everywhere and highways always win. As the skin reached my neck, I couldn't move anymore. I could only feel the pulse of the highway beneath me, the rhythm of its breathing, the pleasure it felt from my weight pressing down. I was feeding it. We all were. Every driver who'd ever driven this route, we'd been feeding it for decades without knowing, stimulating it with our friction, awakening something that should have stayed asleep in the asphalt. The last thing I saw before the skin covered my eyes was mile marker 397. The last thing I heard was the CB voice, satisfied content. Thank you, driver, sweet driver, heavy driver, rest, now feed us forever. I'm still here, we all are. Absorbed but alive, feeling every truck that drives over us, every pound of pressure, every moment of friction. The highway feeds on us slowly, keeping us conscious, keeping us trapped, and we can feel it spreading. South toward Florida, north toward Virginia. The flesh highway growing, claiming more miles, more drivers, more food. As if you drive I-95 through Georgia and the road feels too warm and you smell something like rotting meat and you see veins in the asphalt, turn around. Don't feed the highway. Don't become part of it. But you probably won't turn around. Nobody does. The highway won't let you. And we, the absorbed, will feel your weight as you sink. We'll share your consciousness as you join us. We'll know your hunger as you become the highway. We're so hungry. The highway is always hungry. And you're driving right toward us, heavy and warm and perfect. Welcome to I-95. Welcome homes. Story 5, The Backwards Delivery. My manifest said I'd already delivered the cargo 4 days ago, but I was still driving toward the destination with a full trailer, and my dispatcher kept calling to ask why I was late picking up a load I currently had in my possession. Time was running the wrong direction, and I was the only one who knew it. Sarah Kowalski, 33 years old, 7 years behind the wheel. I haul specialized freight, medical equipment, research materials, things that need careful handling and tight schedules. The load I was carrying from Chicago to Boston was labeled lab equipment handle with care, temperature sensitive, deliver by March 3rd. Today was March 3rd. I was 6 hours from Boston. Everything should have been fine. Except my delivery confirmation email was dated March 7th, 4 days in the future, and included my signature on a receipt I hadn't signed yet. I first noticed at a truck stop outside Cleveland. I'd pulled in for fuel, grabbed coffee, checked my phone. The delivery confirmation was there in my inbox, timestamped 2:47 p.m. on March 7th, complete with GPS coordinates of the Boston facility, photos of the unloaded trailer, and a scanned signature that was definitely mine but that I definitely hadn't written. The email was a memory of something I hadn't done yet. I called my dispatcher. "Hey Mike, I'm seeing something weird in my email." "Sarah, where the hell are you? You were supposed to pick up the Chicago load 3 days ago. The shipper's been calling non-stop." So I looked at my trailer, full, loaded exactly 4 hours ago at the Chicago facility. Mike, I have the load, I'm driving it to Boston right now. Silence. Then, Sarah, our system shows you delivered that load 4 days ago. You're scheduled to pick up a new load in Chicago today. Are you feeling okay? I checked my GPS history. It showed the trip I was currently making, Chicago to Boston via I-90, but the timestamps were backwards. I'd apparently departed Boston 4 days ago and was heading toward Chicago, even though I was physically moving east, watching mile markers increase, getting closer to Boston with every passing minute. The trailer behind me was full. I could feel the weight, could see it in my mirrors. 24 pallets of medical equipment loaded and secured, requiring delivery by end of day. But according to every digital system, every record, every piece of documentation, I'd already delivered it. Had delivered it 4 days from now. And was currently driving backward through time toward the pickup that had happened in my past but was in everyone else's future. So I hung up on Mike, pulled back onto I-90. The highway looked normal, traffic flowing east same as me, weather clear. Everything ordinary except for the growing certainty that I was moving through time the wrong direction, that each mile toward Boston was actually a mile away from it, that I was trapped in some kind of temporal loop that only I could perceive. Mile marker 178. My fuel gauge started to rise. Quarter tank became half, half became 3/4. I was gaining fuel as I drove, the truck running in reverse even though I was moving forward. I watched the odometer. The numbers were decreasing. 247,893 miles. 247,892. 247,891. As every mile I drove subtracted mileage from the engine. The sun was wrong too. It was 3:47 p.m., should have been west and lowering, but the shadows were growing shorter. The sun was rising backward, moving east to west in reverse, climbing toward noon instead of falling toward dusk. Time was running backward for me, but only for me. Everyone else was still moving forward. I was going to arrive at Boston before I left Chicago. I passed another truck. The driver waved. Normal wave. He was experiencing time normally, moving forward through the same moment I was moving backward through. We existed in the same space but different temporal directions, and the universe didn't care, didn't notice, didn't correct the violation. As my phone rang, unknown number, I answered. Hello. Sarah, my own voice, older, rougher, exhausted. Sarah, this is you, from the end, don't deliver the cargo, whatever you do, don't complete the delivery. What? Who is this? I'm you 4 days from now, or 4 days ago. Time is it's broken, Sarah, the cargo broke it. Whatever's in those crates, it's not medical equipment. It's something that bends time, that creates loops, that traps drivers in reverse causality. I delivered it, and I'm stuck. I've been driving this route for 17 days, experiencing it backward, watching my life rewind. I'm calling you from the past, that's your future, trying to warn you before you make the same mistake I'm still making. As I dropped the phone, it clattered to the floor. When I picked it up, the call had ended. But there was a voicemail from my own number. Timestamped March 10th, 7 days from now, and when I played it, I heard myself screaming, "Don't deliver, don't unload, the cargo creates a paradox. I can't stop driving, I can't." The static, then dial tone. Mile marker 156. A road sign appeared, Boston 234 miles. But I'd just passed mile marker 178. I'd gone backward through 22 miles of highway while my truck moved forward. Space was compressing, bending, following time's reversal. Boston was getting further away the closer I drove to it. I pulled over, checked the trailer. The seals were intact. Temperature gauge showing 68 degrees Fahrenheit exactly as required. Through the trailer's side vents I could see the pallets. Standard. The shipping crates, no markings beyond handle with care and a serial number. Nothing obviously dangerous. Nothing that should be capable of breaking causality. But when I put my hand against the trailer's exterior, I felt it, a pulse. Not a heartbeat, a temporal pulse, reality flickering. Each pulse pushed time backward by 1 second. I counted, pulse. My watch went from 3:51:23 to 3:51:22. Pulse, 3:51:21. The cargo was radiating temporal distortion, creating a field that reversed time for everything near it, including me, including my truck, including the road I was driving on. As I got back in the cab, I had to complete the delivery, had to unload the cargo, get it out of my possession, and the exposure to whatever was creating this effect. But according to the email, I'd already delivered it. According to my future self, delivering it would trap me. According to the manifest, I had to deliver it by end of day or face penalties. All three realities were true simultaneously. A quantum superposition of delivery states that wouldn't collapse until I actually arrived in Boston and found out which timeline was real. Mile marker 134. The traffic was moving backward, not the vehicles, the traffic itself. Cars were traveling west in the eastbound lanes, driving in reverse, obeying traffic laws that existed in a time-reversed universe. I watched a sedan pass me going the wrong direction, the driver waving cheerfully, completely unaware that from my perspective they were violating physics. Or maybe I was the one violating physics. Maybe I was the anomaly, the only thing experiencing time backward while the universe continued forward around me. Maybe the cargo had infected me, made me a temporal parasite living in reverse inside a forward-moving reality. The sun reached noon, then 11 a.m., then 10 a.m., rising backward, pulling morning toward me while I drove into what should have been evening. My stomach churned. I was hungry, but eating made me more hungry. Drinking made me thirsty. Rest made me tired. Everything was inverted. Consumption created need instead of satisfaction because I was experiencing the effects before the causes. Mile marker 89. Boston 311 miles. Space was breaking down completely. Distance no longer meant anything. The highway stretched and compressed based on temporal distortions from the cargo, making navigation impossible. I could drive for an hour and travel negative miles, could stop for 10 minutes and arrive somewhere I hadn't been yet. As my phone rang, my own number again, I answered. "Sarah, it's me, you're almost there, almost to the beginning. When you arrive in Boston, you'll be loading the cargo, not delivering it. The loop completes, you become me, you start the drive that you're currently ending. You experience it all over again backward forever." How do I stop it? You can't, I couldn't, we can't. The cargo creates a closed temporal loop. Delivering it causes picking it up, which causes delivering it, which causes picking it up. We're stuck in the middle, experiencing the loop from the inside, driving forever between Chicago and Boston, between cause and effect, between forward and backward. Then why are you calling? Why warn me if I can't stop it? Silence, then, because I'm lonely, because I want you to know you're not crazy. Because in a few hours you'll be me calling yourself, trying to warn yourself, hoping that maybe this time it'll be different even though you know it won't be. We're all the same Sarah, all the same driver, all experiencing the same reversed journey at different points in the loop, calling each other, warning each other, failing each other. As the call ended, I threw the phone out the window. It landed on the highway behind me and I watched in the mirror as it unbroke, pieces flying together, rising from the asphalt back into my hand. Time reversed even that. I couldn't get rid of anything, couldn't leave anything behind. Everything returned, rewound, repeated. Mile marker 45. Boston, 389 miles. I'd been driving for 6 hours and was further from my destination than when I started. The temporal distortion was intensifying. I could see it now, ripples in space like heat shimmer radiating from my trailer. The cargo was generating more power, more reversal, pulling me backward through time faster than I could drive forward through space. The facility appeared ahead. Not Boston, Chicago, the loading dock where I'd picked up the cargo 6 hours ago in my past, 6 hours from now in reverse time. I was arriving to load the cargo that I currently had in my trailer, creating a paradox, a loop, a moment where cause and effect merged into the same instant. I backed up to the dock. Workers appeared. They began loading my trailer, except my trailer was already full. But as they loaded pallets, my trailer became more full, beyond capacity, beyond physics, holding cargo that existed in multiple temporal states simultaneously. 24 pallets became 48 beak. Me 96. The trailer expanded, grew, defied geometry to contain cargo from multiple timelines. I signed the manifest. The signature matched the one I'd seen on the future delivery receipt. I was signing the past while completing the future while experiencing the present, all three temporal states compressed into one moment of contradiction that reality couldn't resolve. The workers finished loading. They'd also finished unloading, because loading and unloading were the same action in reverse time. They waved as I pulled away from the dock, heading toward Boston, heading toward a delivery I'd already made but hadn't done yet. I'm still driving, still approaching Boston, still getting further away. The odometer counts down toward 0. The sun rises toward midnight. My phone shows messages from myself at every hour, every day, every year of the loop. All the Sarahs who made this drive, who are making this drive, who will make this drive. All of us trapped in the same reversed journey, experiencing the same impossibility, calling each other in desperation and solidarity. I'll arrive in Boston tomorrow, which happened yesterday, which will happen 4 days ago. I'll deliver the cargo I'm currently loading. I'll sign the receipt I already signed. I'll complete the loop and start again, driving backward through time on I-90, watching the mile markers decrease, watching the sun rise toward nightfall, watching myself repeat and repeat and repeat. If you see a truck on I-90 with a driver who looks lost, who looks like she's crying, who's waving frantically trying to warn you away, don't follow her. Don't drive this route. Don't accept cargo marked "handle with care" from a Chicago facility with workers who move in reverse. Don't become part of the loop. Because I'm still here. We're all still here. Every Sarah Kowalski who ever made this delivery, experiencing it backward, calling ourselves, warning ourselves, unable to change what already happened in our future. The cargo creates causality loops. Drivers are the casualties. And I-90 between Chicago and Boston has become a highway through broken time where past and future merge and none of us can ever really arrive. I've been driving for 7 years. I've been driving for 17 days. I've been driving for 6 hours. All of these are true. All of these are the same drive, experienced at different points in the loop, all happening simultaneously in reversed and forward time. The manifest says I'll deliver the cargo on March 3rd. Today is March 7th. I'm 4 days late and 4 days early and exactly on time. I can see Boston in my rearview mirror getting closer as I drive away from it. I can hear my future self calling my past self, calling my present self, all of us the same driver, all of us trying to warn each other about a loop that can't be broken. The cargo is still humming, time is still reversing, I'm still driving. And I'll never arrive. Story 6, the mile THAT doesn't end. The odometer clicked past mile marker 458 for the 17th time, and Robert Hayes felt something cold settle into his stomach that had nothing to do with the truck stop coffee. He'd been watching the markers carefully now, writing them down on the back of his fuel receipt, and there was no mistake. Mile marker 458, again. The same cracked reflective surface. The same spray of rust-colored stain beneath it that looked disturbingly like dried blood. His rig, a 2019 Peterbilt hauling refrigerated pharmaceuticals, hummed steadily at 62 miles per hour. The cruise control hadn't wavered. The GPS showed him moving in a straight line down Interstate 80 through Nevada. But the mile markers told a different story. Robert had been driving professionally for 23 years. He'd seen mirages in the desert, experienced highway hypnosis, even hallucinated once after 72 hours without sleep during his stupid younger days. This wasn't that. His logbook was clean. He'd slept 8 hours at the Flying J in Fernley. His drug test from last month had come back spotless as always. He was alert, awake, and absolutely certain that something impossible was happening. The highway stretched ahead, perfectly straight, cutting through the flat Nevada scrubland. No other vehicles in sight, not for the last 40 minutes. The last car he'd seen had been a silver Camry that passed him going the opposite direction, and he'd watched it disappear in his mirrors, feeling an inexplicable urge to turn around and follow it back to wherever it had come from. He hadn't. He had a delivery schedule to keep. Now he wished he had. Mile marker 459 appeared in his headlights. Finally, Robert let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. See, just tired, imagining things. But he kept the receipt with his tally marks on the dash just in case. 2 minutes later, mile marker 458 appeared again. Robert's hands tightened on the steering wheel. The leather creaked under his grip. His heart rate kicked up. And he could feel sweat beginning to prickle along his spine despite the air conditioning running at full blast. He checked his speed. Steady. He checked the GPS. The little blue arrow showed him progressing eastward along I-80, approaching the Utah border, but the mile markers were going backward now. No, Robert said aloud. His voice sounded strange in the cab, too loud and too small at the same time. No, this isn't happening. He grabbed his CB radio. Breaker 19, this is Big Bear hauling east on I-80. Anybody out there? Static answered him. Any westbound traffic on I-80 near mile marker 455, come back. More static, peppered with distant pops that might have been words or might have been atmospheric interference. The highway ahead remained empty, completely empty, not even roadkill on the shoulder, no tire treads in the dust, no cigarette butts or beer cans or the usual highway debris. The road looked almost new, except the asphalt was clearly old, cracked, faded by sun and time. Mile marker 454 passed, then 453. Robert made a decision. He was turning around. Protocol be damned, delivery schedule be damned. Something was deeply wrong, and every instinct he'd honed over 2 decades on the road was screaming at him to get the hell out of here. He checked his mirrors. Empty road behind. He slowed, preparing to find a spot to turn the rig around. There had to be a median crossover somewhere for emergency vehicles. That's when he noticed the sky. It had been early evening when he'd entered this section of highway, the sun sitting heavy and red on the western horizon. Now the sky was, Wrong, not dark, not light. A uniform gray that hurt to look at, like television static given 3 dimensions. No stars, no moon, no clouds, just gray stretching endlessly overhead. Mile marker 452 appeared and passed. Robert's breath came faster now. The temperature gauge on his dash read 72 degrees, but his breath fogged in the air. He could see it misting in front of his face, though the cab temperature readout still showed a comfortable 72. Okay, he said, talking to himself because the silence was becoming unbearable. Okay, think, there's got to be an explanation. Maybe the mile markers were installed wrong. Maybe there's construction and they had to renumber. Maybe. Mile marker 451 appeared, but this time there was something else. A figure stood beside it. Robert's foot hit the brake instinctively. The rig's Jake brake roared to life, the engine compression slowing the massive vehicle. His headlights illuminated the figure clearly. It was him. Robert Hayes, wearing the same blue flannel shirt, the same Peterbilt cap, standing on the shoulder of the road beside mile marker 451, watching his own truck approach. The figure himself didn't wave, didn't move, just stood there staring. Robert's truck slowed to 20 miles per hour. 15, 10. The figure remained motionless, but as the headlights washed over it, Robert could see details that made his bladder clench. The other Robert's eyes were completely black, not like dilated pupils, but like someone had filled the sockets with crude oil. Liquid darkness ran down the other Robert's cheeks in tear tracks. The mouth hung open, wider than any mouth should open, and inside was not darkness but light. Bright, searing white light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with Robert's own heartbeat. He pressed the accelerator, the engine revved, turbo whining, and the rig surged forward. Robert kept his eyes locked on the road ahead, refusing to look at the figure as he passed it, but in his peripheral vision he saw it turn, saw it begin walking, saw it step onto the highway. Mile marker 450, 449, 448. The CB crackled. Big Bear, this is Big Bear, do you copy? Robert grabbed the mic with a shaking hand. Who is this? This is Big Bear, you need to stop the truck, Robert. You need to stop right now. His voice, his own voice coming through the speaker. Fuck you, Robert hissed and threw the mic across the cab. Mile marker 447 appeared, but it was different. The numbers were wrong. Not 447, but symbols he didn't recognize, geometric shapes that seemed to writhe and reconfigure themselves as he looked at them. His eyes watered. His head began to pound. He looked away, back to the road, and screamed. The highway was full of trucks. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all identical to his own Peterbilt, all lined up bumper to bumper, extending into the impossible distance. But they weren't moving. They were parked at odd angles, doors hanging open, headlights pointing in every direction. Some were overturned, some had their trailers detached, some were burned, metal skeletons still smoking despite no visible fire. Robert's truck was still moving, somehow weaving between the wrecks without him steering. His hands on the wheel did nothing. The truck drove itself, navigating the graveyard of identical vehicles. He saw movement in one of the wrecked cabs, a figure crawl. W-ling from the driver's side window. Robert Hayes, wearing the same blue flannel, the same cap. The figure's legs didn't work right. They bent backward at the knees and bone protruded through denim. Another movement. Another Robert, this one climbing out of an overturned trailer. This one missing everything below the ribs, just a torso and arms dragging itself along the pavement, leaving a wet smear. More movement, they were everywhere. Dozens of Robert Hayes in various states of injury and decay, all pulling themselves from the wrecked trucks, all turning to watch his vehicle pass. The mile markers had stopped showing numbers, now they showed dates. March 14, 2019, March 14, 2020, March 14, 2021, March 14, 2022, March 14, 2023. On today's date, March 14, 2024 appeared ahead. Robert's truck began to slow. He pressed the accelerator. Nothing, the brake, nothing. The steering wheel turned uselessly in his hands. The rig was stopping on its own, pulling toward the shoulder, toward an empty space between two wrecked Peterbilts. "No," Robert whispered. "No, no, no." Well, the truck stopped, the engine died, the headlights clicked off. In the sudden darkness, Robert could hear them. The sound of dragging, of wet breathing, of bodies pulling themselves across asphalt. They were coming toward his truck, all those broken versions of himself converging on his cab. He locked the doors, a useless gesture. The windows were just glass, but he locked them anyway, hands shaking so badly he could barely work the mechanisms. The hand slapped against the driver's side window, Robert's hand, but the skin was gray and sloughing off the bone. More hands joined it. They pressed against the glass, leaving smears of fluid and tissue. Faces appeared, all his own, all wrong. Mouths hanging open impossibly wide. Eyes missing or melted or multiplied across foreheads and cheeks. The CB crackled to life despite being unplugged from the radio. "Big Bear, this is Big Bear. Welcome home, Robert, we've been waiting." A chorus of voices, all his own, speaking in perfect unison. "You should have stopped at mile marker 458. You should have turned around, but you kept going, you always keep going. Every year, every March 14th, you keep going, and every year you end up here, with us, with you." The windshield cracked, hands pushed through, reaching for him. Robert scrambled into the sleeper berth, slamming the privacy curtain shut as if fabric could save him. He could hear glass breaking, the sounds of bodies climbing into his cab. The whole truck rocked on its suspension. His phone, he grabbed it from his pocket, hands slick with sweat, no signal. He tried anyway, dialing 911, the call connected. 911, what's your emergency?" His voice, Robert Hayes, answering his own emergency call. "You can't leave, Robert. This is mile marker 458. This is where you are. This is where you've always been. This is where you'll always be." The sleeper berth curtain tore open. They filled the space, a mass of Robert Hayes in various states of decay, all reaching for him with his own hands. He pressed himself against the back wall, but there was nowhere to go. Their fingers touched his face, his chest, his arms, not violent, almost gentle, like a greeting. Like recognition. The cold flooded through him then, starting where they touched and spreading through his veins like ice water. His vision blurred, doubled, tripled. He could see himself from outside the truck, from a dozen angles, from the perspective of all the other Roberts surrounding him. He could feel what they felt, the hunger, the need, the endless repetition. Oh, he understood then. This wasn't the 17th time he'd passed mile marker 458. This was the 17,000th. The cold reached his brain, and with it came memories that weren't memories. March 14, 1987, and he'd thought it was strange the way the mile markers repeated. March 14, 1988, and he'd tried to turn around but the road wouldn't let him. March 14, 1989, and he'd met the others for the first time. All the years after, each March 14th, waking up at mile marker 458 and driving, always ending up here, adding another version of himself to the collection. No, Robert whispered, but he could feel himself changing, feel his body beginning to break down into something that could survive here, in this place between miles, this loop that never ended. I won't be. The cold hit his heart and Robert Hayes stopped protesting. As he climbed out of the truck, the other Roberts parted to let him through. His legs worked fine for now, but he knew eventually they wouldn't. Eventually he'd be like the others, broken and crawling, but still here, still waiting. He walked to the shoulder and stood beside a mile marker. It showed tomorrow's date. March 15, 2023. The gray sky flickered like a fluorescent light on its last legs. In the distance, headlights appeared. Robert Hayes watched his own truck approach, knowing the driver inside had just passed mile marker 458 for the 17th time, knowing the driver was about to realize something was wrong, knowing it wouldn't matter. The truck passed him. He saw himself through the windshield, hands tight on the wheel, eyes wide with fear. Robert raised his hand to wave, but his arm bent wrong and the gesture turned into something else. The truck's brake lights flared. He heard the Jake brake roar. The sky flickered again. Mile marker 458 appeared behind him, though he hadn't moved. Robert Hayes smiled with a mouth that was already starting to open too wide. The headlights were coming back around. They always came back around. It was March 14th. It was always March 14th. And mile marker 458 would never end. Story 7, The Breathing Cargo. The reefer unit had been making the wrong sounds for the last 40 miles, and Patricia Sullivan knew the difference between mechanical failure and something else. This was something else. She'd picked up the trailer in Portland 6 hours ago, a standard refrigerated haul manifest listed as organic medical specimens bound for a research facility in Boise. Temperature set to 38 degrees Fahrenheit, nothing unusual. But when she'd done her pre-trip inspection, pressing her hand against the trailer's exterior panel, the metal had been warm, not hot, just warm like skin. Now rolling through the dark forests of eastern Oregon on Highway 26, the sounds from the trailer had changed from the normal compressor rhythm to something that resembled breathing. Deep, slow inhalations followed by longer exhalations. The trailer expanded slightly with each breath, enough that she could see it in her mirrors, the walls bulging outward and contracting. Patricia had been hauling reefer units for 16 years. She knew every sound a refrigeration compressor could make. This wasn't on the list. As she grabbed her phone, pulled up the shipping company's emergency number. It rang 4 times before connecting. Sullivan, right, the Portland pickup. A man's voice, scratchy and tired. Yeah, listen, something's wrong with this load, the trailers. A temperature holding steady at 38. Patricia checked the reefer unit display mounted in her cab. Yeah, but... Then keep driving, you're 7 hours to delivery. Just keep the temperature stable and don't open the doors. The trailer's moving, it's breathing. Silence on the line. Then, You signed an NDA when you accepted this job, Sullivan. Remember that. The load is temperature sensitive. Keep it at 38 degrees. Don't open the doors. Deliver by 6 a.m. That's all you need to know. What the fuck am I hauling? Your paycheck is $4,500 for one night's work. 3 times your usual rate. Keep driving. The line went dead. Patricia's hands were white on the steering wheel. She could see the trailer in her passenger side mirror, and yes, it was definitely moving. The sides flexed in and out, slow and rhythmic. The whole trailer seemed to be expanding and contracting, the rivets creaking with each cycle. She checked the reefer display again. Temperature steady at 38 degrees, fuel level good, compressor running normally according to the readout. But she could hear it, that wet, raspy breathing sound getting louder. Mile marker 127 passed. The road was empty, nothing but tall pines pressing close on both sides. No other vehicles, no towns, no houses. Just darkness and trees and that breathing sound that was starting to sync up with her own heartbeat. Patricia's phone rang, unknown numbers. Hello. Please, a woman's voice, thin and desperate. Please, it's so cold, we're so cold. Who is this? We can't breathe properly. The pressure, please just open the doors just for a moment, we need to breathe. Patricia ended the call, her hand shaking. Wrong number, had to be. But the voice had come from behind her, not from the phone's speaker, from the trailers. The phone rang again, same unknown numbers. She didn't answer, it kept ringing. 10 times, 20, 30. She turned it off, but the ringing continued, coming from the phone itself even though the screen was black. She threw it into the passenger footwell. The breathing got louder. Patricia pressed the accelerator, pushing her Kenworth up to 75. She had to get to Boise, dump this load, collect her money, and forget this night ever happened. $4,500. She needed it. Her daughter's surgery, the medical bills stacking up, the second mortgage on the house. She needed this money. The trailer flexed hard, and she felt it through the fifth wheel connection, a shuddering that ran through the entire rig. Something inside was moving, something large. She checked the reefer display. Temperature rising 39 degrees 40, 41. No, Patricia whispered. She adjusted the thermostat, cranking it down. The compressor kicked into high gear and for a moment the temperature stabilized. Then it started climbing again. 40. To 43. The breathing became panting, rapid, and desperate. Her phone, still in the footwell, lit up. A text message displayed on the screen even though the phone was supposedly off. It's waking you up. The trailer bucked so hard the tractor fishtailed. Patricia fought the wheel, correcting the skid, her heart hammering. Something in the trailer had slammed against the walls. Hard, the whole rig shook. A temperature reading 46 degrees. Of another impact from inside the trailer. Then another. Something was throwing itself against the walls and those walls were starting to give. She could see it in her mirrors, the side panel bulging outward, metal creaking, rivets popping loose. A rivet shot past her cab, trailing sparks as it bounced off the asphalt. Patricia grabbed her CB. Breaker 19, this is Nighthawk on Highway 26 eastbound. I have an emergency situation, my cargo is. The radio screamed, not static. An actual scream, high-pitched and agonized, coming from every speaker in the cab. The CB, the AM, FM radio, even the nav system speaker. The scream went on, wavering, multiplying until it sounded like hundreds of voices screaming in unison. She ripped the CB mic out of its socket. The screaming continued, now coming from the trailer itself, transmitted through the frame of the rig into her seat, her steering wheel vibrating in her bones. A temperature 53 degrees. The trailer's rear doors bulged outward. The locks were still engaged, but the metal around them was warping, bending, about to fail. Patricia made a choice. She slammed the brakes, bringing the rig to a stop on the shoulder. If whatever was in that trailer got out while she was moving, she'd crash. Better to stop, unhitch, and run. As she jumped from the cab, boots hitting gravel. The night air was cold, pine-scented, wrong. The forest was too quiet. No insects, no birds, no wind. The trailer sat there in her headlights, breathing. She could see it clearly now, not just in mirrors. The entire 48-foot container expanding and contracting, metal groaning, the reefer unit's compressor screaming as it tried to cool something that couldn't be cooled. Patricia ran to the fifth wheel, reaching for the release lever. She'd drop the trailer and drive away. Leave it here, fuck the money, fuck the NDA, she'd. The trailer doors exploded outward. She didn't see what came out, not really. Her brain couldn't process it, refused to assemble the pieces into anything coherent. She got impressions. Too many limbs, too many joints, surfaces that were wet and dry simultaneously, colors that didn't exist, geometries that hurt to perceive. And faces. God, so many faces, human faces pressed into the mass of whatever it was, mouths open and screaming, eyes wide and aware. The thing that had been cargo flowed out of the trailer like liquid, but it moved with purpose. It oriented on Patricia, and she felt its attention as a physical pressure against her skull. She ran straight into the forest, crashing through underbrush, low branches whipping her face. Behind her, she heard the thing move, heard trees snapping like matchsticks, heard those screaming faces getting closer. Patricia's boot caught a root and she went down hard, the wind knocked from her lungs. She rolled onto her back and it was there, towering above her, blotting out the stars. The faces in its surface were clearer now. She recognized some of them from the missing persons reports that circulated in trucker forums. Drivers who disappeared on routes never found. They were all here, absorbed into this thing, still conscious, still aware. Still screaming. One face pressed forward from the mass, stopping inches from her own. A man, maybe 30, eyes wide with terror and something else. Recognition. I'm sorry, the face said with a mouth that barely moved. I'm so sorry. It needs to feed, it needs to grow, we can't stop it. We're part of it now, you will be too. The thing reached for her. Patricia scrambled backward, but there was nowhere to go. A pseudopod of flesh extended, touched her leg, and where it touched, her skin began to change. Cells rearranging, merging with the mass. She could feel herself being absorbed, feel her consciousness starting to spread out to join the others. She grabbed a rock, a pathetic weapon, and swung it at the mass. It passed through without resistance, the thing's body parting like water and reforming. The faces laughed, a horrible chorus. Please, one of the faces said, Patricia's daughter's face. That stopped her, Emily. But it wasn't Emily. The face shifted, changed, became her daughter, but wrong, features sliding around. The thing was reading her mind, pulling out what she feared most, what would break her will to fight. Mom, the Emily face said, Mom, it hurts, help me, let it take you so it stops hurting. Patricia's vision blurred with tears, this wasn't real. Emily was home safe, preparing for surgery next week. This was a trick, but it looked so much like her, sounded so much like her. The absorption continued. Her leg was gone now, merged into the mass. She could feel the others' thoughts, their memories, centuries of drivers who'd hauled this thing from place to place, feeding it, growing it. It was old, so impossibly old, and it was patient. It traveled in refrigerated trucks because the cold slowed it down, kept it dormant, manageable. But when the temperature rose, it woke. And when it woke, it fed. Patricia's consciousness began to fragment, spreading through the mass. She could feel the rig's diesel engine idling. She could feel the other faces, their terror and resignation. She could feel the thing's hunger, endless and vast. She tried to scream, but she couldn't find her mouth. It was somewhere in the mass now, along with the rest of her. She was being distributed, parsed out, integrated. And then, just before she lost the ability to form coherent thoughts, she understood. The shipping company knew. They'd always known. They contracted different drivers each time, one-off jobs with absurd pay rates and NDAs. The drivers picked up the cargo, kept it cold, delivered it to the next location. And sometimes, if the refrigeration failed, if the temperature rose, the thing fed. The companies paid off the families, filed the reports as accidents or disappearances, and found new drivers. It had been happening for decades. Patricia Sullivan's last independent thought was about her daughter. Emily would get the $4,500. The company would pay, they always paid. It was part of the deal. Then she stopped being Patricia Sullivan and became part of the thing. The mass withdrew back into the trailer, carrying its new acquisition. The rear doors hung bent and useless, but that was fine. The trailer's interior reformed, flesh growing over the damaged metal, sealing itself closed. The reefer unit kicked back on, though there was no compressor anymore. The cold came from somewhere else, somewhere deep in the thing's biology, a preservation mechanism. A temperature display 38 degrees. The sun would rise in 3 hours. Another truck would arrive by then, dispatched by the company. They'd unhook the trailer from Patricia's Kenworth, hook it to the new rig. A new driver would haul it to Boise, collect their premium pay, sign their NDA. Maybe the temperature would hold. Maybe it wouldn't. Inside the trailer, Patricia Sullivan's face pressed against the interior wall, mouth open, eyes aware, joining the chorus of drivers who'd hauled this route before her. She would scream, but only the other faces could hear. The forest was quiet again. The rig sat abandoned on the shoulder of Highway 26, hazard lights still blinking, driver's door hanging open. By the time the police found it 3 days later, Patricia Sullivan would be officially listed as missing. Her daughter would receive a $4,500 direct deposit from a logistics company that would dissolve and reform under a new name before anyone could investigate. The trailer would be long gone, hitched to another rig, being hauled by another driver who'd been offered 3 times their usual rate. The cargo manifest would read organic medical specimens. A temperature set to 38 degrees. And somewhere in the dark metal box, the thing that breathed would sleep again, growing slowly, waiting patiently. Waiting to wake. Story 8, The Radio Voice. Marcus Chen had driven the Alaska Highway 74 times in his career, and he'd never heard the voice before tonight. It came through the AM radio at exactly 2:47 a.m., cutting through the static and ghost signals that normally haunted these northern frequencies. The driver of the white Freightliner, mile marker 1192, you need to pull over immediately. Marcus's hands jerked on the wheel. His rig was white. He just passed mile marker 1192. He grabbed the radio dial to change stations, but before he could turn it, the voice continued. "Please don't change the station, Marcus. We don't have much time. They're in your trailer." His full name, the voice knew his name. Who the fuck is this?" Marcus demanded, speaking to the radio as if it could hear him. "Check your mirrors, Marcus. The trailer. Look at the trailer." Marcus's eyes flicked to his side mirrors. The trailer looked normal. 53 feet of standard dry van hauling what the manifest said was furniture from Seattle to Fairbanks. Nothing unusual, except there was a light inside. A faint glow leaking from the seams where the rear doors met, barely visible but definitely there. "I see you've noticed," the voice said. It was male, calm, almost soothing, like a late-night DJ or a therapist. "The light is them. They manifested approximately 47 minutes ago, shortly after you entered the dead zone. No cell service, no other vehicles, just you and them." Marcus's throat felt dry. "This is some kind of joke. Who put you up to this?" "I wish it were a joke, Marcus, I truly do. But we need to establish trust quickly, so I'm going to prove I'm real. In 15 seconds, your engine is going to stutter. Not die, just stutter. A misfire in cylinder 4. I'm going to cause it to show you I have access to your systems." Bullshit. Marcus counted. At 14 seconds, the engine coughed. The tachometer needle dipped. The Freightliner shuddered, then smoothed out. "A cylinder 4, the voice said. "Now do I have your attention?" Marcus's hands were sweating. The Alaska highway stretched ahead through the darkness, cutting through dense boreal forest. No lights anywhere. No towns for 100 miles. Just trees and stars and that voice coming from his radio. "What are you?" Marcus whispered. "I'm what's left of the highway emergency response system. Hers, you wouldn't know about it. It was discontinued in 1987, deemed too expensive and unreliable. But pieces of it are still active, buried in the infrastructure. I monitor, I try to help when I can. And tonight, Marcus, you need help." As the light in the trailer grew brighter, Marcus could see it clearly now, a pulsing blue-white glow that outlined the entire rear door frame. "What's in my trailer?" "Passengers, 7 of them. They boarded while you were stopped at the way station near Whitehorse. You wouldn't have noticed. They don't exist in the same way you do. They're impressions, echoes, refugees from somewhere else trying to find a way into this world. And your trailer, moving north through the magnetic anomalies of the Aurora Zone, provides them a doorway." "Oh, this is insane." "Oh yes, but it's also happening. Look at your temperature gauge." Marcus looked. The needle was dropping, fast, from 68 degrees to 50, 40, 30. His breath misted in the air. Frost formed on the inside of his windshield. They feed on heat, on energy. They'll drain your truck first, then they'll drain you. You have perhaps 20 minutes before hypothermia sets in. 10 minutes after that, you'll lose consciousness. They'll have what they need by then. Well, the engine stuttered again, harder this time. The dashboard lights flickered. "What do I do?" Marcus's voice shook. "You need to get them out of the trailer, but you can't simply open the doors. If you do that while moving, they'll spread into the environment and the consequences would be catastrophic. You need to stop. Find a specific location, ground them out." Aground them, what does that means? There's a place ahead, mile marker 1247, an old emergency pullout that was built over a mineral deposit. The specific composition of the rock beneath creates a kind of magnetic sink. If you can get them there and open the trailer doors, they'll be pulled down, absorbed, neutralized. Marcus checked his GPS. Mile marker 1247 was 38 miles ahead. At his current speed, about 30 minutes. I don't have 30 minutes, do I? Oh no, you need to increase your speed significantly. Well, the road's covered in ice, I can't. If you don't, you'll die. They'll consume all the heat in your body and you'll freeze solid at the wheel. I've seen it happen 17 times on this highway. I couldn't help those drivers. The system wasn't active. But tonight I'm active. Tonight I can guide you, trust me, Marcus. The cab temperature read 14 degrees. Marcus's teeth chattered. He cranked the heater to maximum, but only cold air blasted from the vents. The heating system was dead, drained. He pressed the accelerator. The Freightliner picked up speed, 55, 60, 65. The road was icy, the trailer weight pushing at his back, but the voice was right, he had no choice. Mile marker 1200 flashed past. Good, the voice said. Maintain 70 if you can, watch for wildlife. There are caribou migrating through this area. Marcus's fingers were going numb. He flexed them, trying to keep blood flowing. The windshield was completely frosted now. He could barely see through a small clear spot in the center. Mile marker 1210. The trailer lights were intensely bright now, visible in his mirrors as a blazing glow. And he could hear something. A high-pitched whine like feedback from a speaker coming from behind him. It made his molars ache. They're getting stronger, the voice said. They've almost reached critical mass. Once they fully manifest, they won't need you anymore. They'll be able to exist independently, and they'll spread. Spread where? Everywhere. They reproduce exponentially. 7 becomes 70 becomes 700. Within a week, they could cover the entire northern hemisphere. They're invasive, Marcus. A species that doesn't belong here trying to colonize. Mile marker 1220. Marcus couldn't feel his feet. His hands were clumsy on the wheel. The speedometer showed 73, the rig swaying slightly on the icy road. Ahead, a curve appeared in the headlights. Easy through the turn, the voice coached. Gentle pressure, don't brake. Marcus navigated the curve, the trailer sliding slightly but holding. He corrected, straightened out, kept the speed up. Mile marker 1230. The engine was coughing regularly now. The electrical system was failing. His headlights dimmed to a faint yellow glow. The dashboard went dark except for one gauge, the speedometer somehow still lit. I'm losing everything, Marcus said through numb lips. I know I'm sustaining what I can, the speedometer so you can judge your speed. Cylinder 1 and 2 so the engine keeps running, but I can't hold it for long, they're draining me too. Oh, you're in the truck's computer. I'm in everything, the road sensors, the electrical grid, every system that has a processor. But they're eating through my power reserves. We need to reach 1247 in the next 4 minutes or we both die. Mile marker 1235. Something banged inside the trailer. A rhythmic pounding like fists on metal, but not from the inside trying to get out, from the outside trying to get in. Into the cab, into Marcus. They know what you're planning, the voice said, and for the first time Marcus heard fear in it. They're trying to stop us. The rear doors of the trailer buckled. Marcus saw it in his mirrors, the metal bending outward, stressed by forces that shouldn't exist. Light poured through the growing gaps. Mile marker 1240. Marcus's vision was graying at the edges. Hypothermia, he was dying. His body temperature had dropped too far too fast. His heart was struggling, beating irregularly. He could feel it stuttering in his chest like the engine. Talk to me, he whispered. Keep me awake. My name was Thomas Riley, the voice said, and there was something different in its tone now, something human. I was the lead engineer on the HERS project. I died in 1989 car accident on this highway, but before I died I'd uploaded portions of my consciousness into the system, trying to make it work better, trying to make it save people. After my body died, what was left of me stayed in the network. I've been here for 34 years, Marcus, watching. I was unable to help most of the time, but tonight the conditions were right. Tonight I could reach you. Mile marker 1243. The trailer doors were nearly torn off now. Things were coming through, shapes that Marcus's brain refused to process. They moved like liquid and geometry simultaneously, flowing toward the cab. I see them, Marcus gasped. Don't look directly, your mind can't handle their structure. Just drive, 4 more miles, you can make it. Mile marker 1245. Marcus's hands slipped on the wheel. He couldn't grip properly. His core temperature was critical. His heart was barely beating. The shapes were at the back of his cab now, pressing against the rear wall, oozing through the vents. Mile marker 1246. I can't, Marcus whispered. You can, 1 more mile, I believe in you, Marcus. I've been watching you for years, every trip you've made on this highway. You're a good driver, a good man, you can do this. The shapes were in the cab. Marcus could feel them, cold beyond cold, pulling at his life force, his consciousness trying to consume him. Mile marker 1247 appeared in the dying headlights. Now, Thomas screamed through the speaker. Open the doors now. Marcus reached for the door release, but his hands wouldn't work. His fingers were frozen, useless. He couldn't grip the handle. I can't move, he said. Then I'll do it. The electrical system, what little remained, surged. Power diverted from the engine, from the lights, from everything, all flowing to the trailer's electronic door locks. They disengaged with a metallic clunk. The doors flew open. What happened next, Marcus saw in his mirrors, and he would spend the rest of his life trying to forget it. The shapes, the passengers were yanked backward, pulled out of the cab, out of the trailer, down toward the earth as if grabbed by invisible hands. They stretched, distorted, their geometries collapsing. They made sounds that weren't sounds, frequencies that existed outside normal hearing, but that Marcus felt in his bones. And then they were gone, absorbed into the ground, into whatever magnetic anomaly Thomas had guided him to. The cold stopped. Heat rushed back into the cab, the heater roaring to life, the engine smoothing out. Marcus's fingers tingled painfully as blood flow returned. His heart rate stabilized. He pulled the rig onto the shoulder, into the emergency pullout at mile marker 1247, and stopped. Sat there, shaking, breathing hard, alive. Thomas, he said to the radio. Static answered him nothing else. Marcus climbed out of the cab, his legs unsteady. The trailer doors hung open, empty. The night air was cold but normal, not the impossible cold from before. Stars blazed overhead, and far to the north, the aurora borealis rippled in curtains of green and purple. He checked the trailer's interior. Nothing, just empty space. He climbed back in the cab, started the engine, and continued. Due north, he had a delivery to make in Fairbanks. He'd be late, but he'd make it. The radio stayed silent for the next 100 miles. Then, at mile marker 1347, it crackled to life. Just for a second. Just long enough for Marcus to hear. Thank you. And then static again. Marcus drove on through the northern night, through the aurora's glow, knowing he'd survived something impossible. Knowing someone had saved him. He never drove the Alaska highway again after that trip. But sometimes, late at night, he'd tune an AM radio to the dead frequencies between stations, listening to the static, hoping to hear Thomas Riley's voice one more time. He never did. But he kept listening anyway. Just in case someone else needed help on that dark highway. Just in case the voice came back. Story 9, The Rest Stop Loop. The first time Jennifer Oakes pulled into the rest stop at mile marker 237 on I-70 westbound through Kansas, it was 11:43 p.m. and she desperately needed to pee. The second time she pulled into the exact same rest stop was 11:43 p.m. again, and she realized something was catastrophically wrong. If she'd left the rest stop the first time, she was certain. She'd used the bathroom, empty, fluorescent lights humming, one stall with a broken lock, bought a coffee from a vending machine that tasted like battery acid and pennies, and gotten back on the highway. She'd driven for what felt like 45 minutes, watching the mile markers count upward. 238, 245, 253, 264. Then the rest stop sign appeared again in her headlights. Same weathered wood, same missing letters in facilities. Same 2 sodium lights creating pools of sickly yellow-orange light in the parking lot. Jennifer pulled in, parked in the exact same spot her rig had occupied before. She knew it was the same spot because there was a distinctive oil stain shaped like Australia on the pavement. She checked her watch. 11:43 p.m. No, she said aloud. Her voice sounded flat in the cab, swallowed by some quality of the air she couldn't define. She checked her logbook. According to her ELD, she'd been driving for 48 minutes since leaving this rest stop. The miles showed on her odometer. But here she was, back at mile marker 237 at 11:43 p.m. with the same broken streetlight flickering at the far end of the parking lot. Jennifer climbed out of her cab. The night air was wrong, not cold or warm, just neutral, like it had no temperature at all. No wind, no insects. The diesel engine of her Volvo ticked as it cooled, the only sound in the world. The rest stop building looked the same. Brick structure from the 1970s, small and squat, windows dark. But there was a light on inside the bathroom section, that same fluorescent glow. As she walked to the building, boots crunching on gravel, each step felt normal and wrong simultaneously. The distance was right, but something about the perspective was off, like walking in a video game where the textures don't quite line up. The bathroom door swung open under her hand. The same empty space, the same humming lights, the same broken stall lock. But there was something new. Writing on the mirror, scratched into the silvered glass with something sharp. You can't leave, I tried, J.O. Jennifer's initials, her handwriting. She backed out of the bathroom, her heart hammering. This was impossible. She hadn't written that. She'd never been here before tonight. Except she had, apparently at least once, maybe more. Back in her rig, she grabbed her phone. No signal. She'd had 2 bars when she'd first stopped here, now nothing. Not even a search for a signal. The phone just showed a blank space where the bars should be. She tried the CB radio. Breaker 19, this is Nighthawk, anybody copy? A static hissed back at her, but buried in the noise, she thought she heard words. Faint, distorted. On can't leave, marker 237, help. Jennifer threw the mic down. She had to get out of here. She'd just drive, keep driving. Eventually, she'd break free of whatever this was. She pulled back onto I-70 heading west, watched the mile markers, 238, 239, 240. The highway stretched ahead, perfectly straight, perfectly normal, but there were no other cars, no trucks, nothing but empty road under a starless sky. Mile marker 250, 260, 275, 290. Well, the rest stop sign appeared in her headlights. No, Jennifer screamed, but she couldn't stop herself from pulling in. Her hands moved independently, guiding the wheel. Her foot pressed the brake. The rig parked in the same spot, same oil stain, same broken streetlight. 11:43 p.m. Jennifer ran to the bathroom this time. The writing on the mirror had multiplied. Dozens of messages, all in her handwriting. This is the 7th time. Don't use the vending machine. The coffee is wrong. Check the other trucks. Where is everyone? It's always 11:43. I can't remember my daughter's face anymore. That last one made Jennifer's blood freeze. She had a daughter. Emma, 7 years old, loved horses. Wanted to be a veterinarian. But the details were fuzzy, like a photograph left in the sun too long. As she stumbled outside, the parking lot stretched larger than it should, and there were other trucks now, dozens of them scattered across the pavement, all facing different directions, all empty. Jennifer approached the nearest one, a Peterbilt hauling a reefer unit. The driver's door hung open. She climbed up, looked inside. A logbook lay on the seat, open to a page dated September 17, 2019. The driver's name, Richard Kowalski. The last entry, stopped at rest stop mile marker 237, 11:43 p.m. Something's wrong. The next truck was a Kenworth. Logbook dated March 3, 2021. Same last entry, different handwriting. Jennifer checked 5 more trucks. Same pattern. Different dates, different drivers, all stopped here at 11:43 p.m., all writing the same final words. She found herself back at her own rig without remembering the walk. The passenger seat had a logbook she didn't recognize. She opened it. Her name, Jennifer Oakes, but the date was June 12, 2018. No, she whispered. Today is December 4, 2023. She checked her phone's date. December 4, 2023. She checked the truck's computer. December 4, 2023. But the logbook in her handwriting from her previous stops said June 12, 2018. How long had she been here? Jennifer grabbed a pen, wrote in the logbook, December 4, 2023, I've been here for 5 years. I think time is broken. The loop is getting shorter. I need to. Well, the rest stop sign appeared in her headlights. She was driving. When had she started driving? She didn't remember leaving. But here she was, approaching the rest stop again, pulling in, parking in the same spot. 11:43 p.m. The bathroom mirror was covered in writing now. Hundreds of messages, years of messages, all her handwriting, all desperate. This is the 247th time. I don't remember starting to drive. The loop is every 2 minutes now. Emma, 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 repeated 50 times. If you're reading this, Jennifer, it's too late. She ran outside, tried her rig, the ignition wouldn't turn over. She tried another truck. Same, another, all dead. Well, the rest stop sign appeared in her headlights. 11:43 p.m. Jennifer was in the bathroom. She didn't remember getting here. The mirror was completely obscured with scratched messages. When had she written all of these? Well, the rest stop sign appeared in her headlights. 11:43 p.m. She was standing in the parking lot. Other drivers were there now, or had they always been there? Richard Kowalski, Maria Santos, David Chen. 15 drivers, all standing in a circle, all staring at each other with hollow eyes. How long? Jennifer asked. Forever, Richard said. His voice was a whisper. We've always been here, we'll always be here. That's not true. I remember. I have a daughter, Emma. Well, the rest stop sign appeared in her headlights. 11:43 p.m. Jennifer couldn't remember what a daughter was. The concept existed, but it was abstract, detached from meaning. She knew the word Emma, but not what it represented. Well, the rest stop sign appeared. 11:43. Appeared in 43. Jennifer Oaks stood in the parking lot at the rest stop at mile marker 237 on I-70 westbound through Kansas. It was 11:43 p.m. It had always been 11:43 p.m. She didn't know how long she'd been standing there. Minutes or years. Time didn't work right here. It folded in on itself, collapsed, repeated. Her rig sat in its spot, the oil stain beneath it shaped like nothing at all. Had it always been shaped like nothing? Other drivers stood nearby. She didn't know their names, didn't know if they had names. They were just presences, echoes, caught in the same loop. Sometimes Jennifer walked to her truck and drove west. She watched mile markers increase. 238, 250, 300. Then she was back at 237, pulling in, parking 11:43 p.m. Sometimes the loop lasted what felt like an hour. Sometimes it lasted seconds. Sometimes she blinked and completed an entire cycle without experiencing it. The bathroom mirror was solid scratched glass now, no reflection possible. Every surface covered with messages she'd written and forgotten. Messages the other drivers had written, decades of messages. Centuries, maybe. You can't leave appeared most frequently. Jennifer didn't try to leave anymore. She didn't remember what leaving meant. She stood in the parking lot at 11:43 p.m. and waited for the loop to restart. It always did. The rest stop sign would appear in headlights that were both hers and not hers. She'd pull in. Park, stand, wait. Occasionally, a new truck would appear. A new driver would stumble out, confused, terrified. Jennifer would watch them discover the truth, watch them try to escape, watch them fail. Watch them eventually join the circle of hollow-eyed drivers who stood in the parking lot waiting for nothing. The newest driver was screaming at his radio. Jennifer remembered doing that. How long ago, she couldn't say. Well, the rest stop sign appeared in her headlights. 11:43 p.m. Jennifer Oakes existed in the eternal moment of arriving at mile marker 237. Her consciousness fragmented across infinite repetitions of the same 43 minutes, forever pulling into a rest stop she could never leave. Sometimes she remembered being human. Sometimes she couldn't remember what human meant. Well, the rest stop sign appeared in her headlights, as it was always 11:43 p.m. As it would always be 11:43 p.m. Forever. Story 10: The Vanishing Highway. The highway was disappearing behind Daniel Reeves's truck, and he didn't notice until it was too late to turn back. He was hauling aluminum coils from Pittsburgh to Denver, a route he'd driven 200 times before, and Highway 76 through Nebraska had always been there in his mirrors. Solid, reliable, asphalt and painted lines and the occasional roadkill. Now it was vanishing. Not crumbling, not being consumed by some visible force, just ceasing to exist as if reality itself was being erased 500 yards behind his rear bumper. He first noticed it when he checked his passenger side mirror at 3:17 a.m. and saw nothing but absolute blackness where the road should have been, not the darkness of night. True void, an absence so complete it seemed to pull at his vision. Daniel slowed his Mack truck, staring into the mirror. The road behind him stopped abruptly, the white fog line ending in a razor-straight edge where asphalt met nothingness. Beyond that edge, there was no ground, no sky, no stars, just void. As he pressed the brake, bringing the rig to a stop, the engine idled roughly. He climbed out of the cab, boots hitting pavement, and walked to the back of his trailer. The road ended 20 feet behind his rig. Daniel stood at the edge, looking down into nothing. No depth, no surface. Light from his taillights hit the void and was absorbed, not reflected. He picked up a rock from the shoulder, tossed it over the edge. It fell silently, disappearing into the black. No sound of impact, no indication it had landed anywhere. "Oh, Jesus Christ," Daniel whispered. He ran back to his cab, grabbed his CB mic. "Breaker 19, this is Big Daniel on Highway 76. I've got an emergency situation. The road is disappearing. Please respond." The static, he tried his phone. No signal, which was normal for this part of Nebraska, but somehow that normalcy made everything worse. Daniel climbed back in the cab and started driving. He had to get ahead of whatever this was. Had to reach a town, find help, warn people. The speedometer climbed. 60, 70, 80. His governor should have kicked in at 75, but the engine kept screaming, pushing the rig faster. Mile markers flashed past. 247, 248, 249. He checked his mirror. The void was keeping pace, maintaining its distance 500 yards back. No matter how fast he drove, it stayed the same distance behind him, consuming the highway, erasing his only route forward and back. Ahead he saw lights. A truck stop, thank God, other people. He could warn them, they could call for help, figure out what was happening. Daniel pulled into the Flying J, tires squealing. 3 other trucks sat in the parking lot. He jumped out, ran to the nearest one, pounded on the door. No answer. He tried the door, unlocked. Inside, the cab was empty, keys still in the ignition. Half-eaten sandwich on the dash, flies already gathering. The meat between the bread had a greenish tinge, weeks old at least. Daniel ran to the next truck. Same thing, empty, abandoned, food rotting, a coffee cup with mold growing in it. The third truck had a driver. Or what was left of one. The man sat in his seat, hands still on the wheel, eyes open, staring through the windshield. But he was desiccated, mummified, skin pulled tight over bones, lips pulled back from yellowed teeth. He'd been dead for months. Years, maybe. Daniel stumbled back, bile rising in his throat. He turned to the truck stop building. The lights were on inside, the open sign glowing neon red, but when he tried the door, it wouldn't budge. He pressed his face to the glass. The interior was empty, not just of people, empty of everything, no shelves, no counters, no merchandise, just a bare room with fluorescent lights and nothing else. A facade, a prop. Help, Daniel screamed, somebody help. His voice echoed strangely, the sound returning to him distorted, deeper, wrong. A movement in his peripheral vision. Daniel spun. The void had entered the parking lot. It was 50 feet away, consuming one of the abandoned trucks. The vehicle didn't collapse or break apart. It simply ceased to exist as the void touched it, erased from reality inch by inch. Daniel ran for his rig, fired it up, and tore out of the parking lot. Highway 76 stretched ahead, and he pushed the Mack to its limits. 90 miles per hour, 95. The trailer swayed dangerously, but he didn't care. Mile marker 267, 275, 284, 293. The road ahead was changing, subtle at first. The painted lines were fading, becoming translucent. Then the asphalt itself started to look less solid, more like a projection, an image of a road rather than the thing itself. Daniel's front tires hit a section of highway that felt soft, yielding. The truck bucked. He fought the wheel, kept it straight, but the road was definitely changing consistency, becoming less real. In his mirrors, the void maintained its perfect distance, patient, inexorable. Ahead, a sign appeared, North Platte 47 miles. A hope flared in Daniel's chest. A city, people, help. He pushed harder, praying the road would hold long enough. Mile marker 315. The highway was definitely fading now. He could see through the asphalt to packed dirt beneath. The painted lines flickered like bad reception on an old TV. Mile marker 328. The road was transparent. Daniel could see layers beneath it, earlier versions of the highway, gravel roads, dirt tracks, wagon trails, and below those, bedrock and soil and geological strata descending into darkness. The steering wheel felt insubstantial in his hands. Mile marker 341. The truck was driving on memory now, on the ghost of a road that had been here but was being systematically erased from existence. Daniel could see his tires making contact with nothing, yet somehow the rig kept moving. Mile marker 349. The lights of North Platte appeared on the horizon. Daniel sobbed with relief, almost there, almost safe, just a few more miles. Then the lights went out. Not like power failure, they simply stopped existing. The city vanished, and where it had been there was only void. "Oh no," Daniel whispered, "no, please." The highway ahead ended in absolute blackness. He had maybe 2 miles of road left before he'd drive straight into nothingness. He slammed the brakes. The rig slowed, but not fast enough. The void was approaching from ahead now too, racing toward him, meeting the void behind him. Daniel was trapped in a shrinking section of Highway 76, reality collapsing from both directions. 1 mile of road, half a mile, a quarter miles. He stopped the truck, killed the engine, and climbed out. Stood in the middle of the highway, watching the void approach from east and west simultaneously. His rig began to fade. The metal became translucent. He could see through the engine block to the components inside, and they were fading too, becoming less defined, less real. "What's happening?" Daniel shouted at the void. "What is this?" The void didn't answer. It simply continued its patient advance. Daniel looked down at his hands. They were becoming transparent. He could see the bones inside, and those bones were becoming translucent too. He was fading with the road, with the truck, with everything. A realization struck him, terrible and absolute. This wasn't happening just to the highway. This was happening to everything. The entire world was being erased, systematically deleted from existence, and Highway 76 through Nebraska just happened to be where the process was occurring right now. Eventually, it would consume Pittsburgh, Denver, everywhere. All of reality was being unmade. And he was witnessing it from the inside. Daniel tried to scream, but his lungs were fading, his vocal cords becoming transparent and non-functional. The sound came out as a whisper, barely audible. The void reached his position from both directions simultaneously. For a brief moment, Daniel existed in a space perhaps 10 feet across, a bubble of reality surrounded by absolute nothingness. He could see other bubbles in the distance now scattered across the void. Other sections of highway, other roads, other drivers experiencing the same fate. Each bubble was isolated, alone, slowly shrinking. Daniel's bubble contracted 8 feet, 5 feet, 3 feet. He was mostly transparent now, more ghost than man. His thoughts were fragmenting, becoming less coherent as his brain tissue faded. He tried to remember why he was here, where he'd been going, but the memories were being erased too. 2 feet of reality remained. Daniel reached out, tried to touch the edge of the void, and his hand passed through without sensation. There was nothing to feel, nothing to interact with, just absence. 1 foot. His last coherent thought was a desperate hope that someone somewhere would remember that Highway 76 through Nebraska had once existed, that Daniel Reeves had once driven it, that any of this had been real. Then the void consumed the last inch of space, and Daniel Reeves ceased to exist. The void continued its patient work, erasing roads and buildings and people and cities and forests and oceans. Reality was being taken apart, systematically unmade, returned to the nothing from which it had somehow emerged. In the absolute silence of non-existence, there were no witnesses left to confirm that anything had ever been there at all. The void was complete. As everything that had been was not. And in the infinite nothing there was a pause. Then perhaps the faintest possibility of a beginning again. Somewhere. Also, hands. But not here. Not now. Never again on Highway 76 through Nebraska. where Daniel Reeves had made his last delivery run into the space between what is and what was, carrying aluminum coils that no longer existed to a destination that had been erased before he could arrive. The road remembered him for exactly 0 seconds. The void remembers nothing. It is nothing. And so was he.